Hey there! Welcome back to Thriving Thursday. If you are new here, I am Asaria de la Cruz and I am your host. And here we like to have fun conversations, keeping it centered around our faith, but we like to dive into any kind of topic. Today, I have a very special guest with us, just like all my other guests are so special because I love each and every single one of them. I have Kimberly Michelle here with me today. She's such an awesome person. Funny story, I actually met Kimberly for the first time when I was like 14. But I only saw her like two or three times, and then I didn't like stay connected with her or see her anything until like adulthood and like my Bible study group from my church that I'm now a member at and everything. So it's been crazy to like see how like God brings things back around and people back around. A few things about Kimberly. She is a realtor here in the North Dallas area. So if you need a home or want to know information, make sure you go hit up my girl Kim. She is a sister, so she has siblings. She's grown up with her siblings. I think both of her brothers are actually in the military. Three.
Three, yes. I
Three.
have three.
Wow, three of her brothers are in the military.
Oh, no,
so
I have three brothers. Only one of them is in the military. He's in the Air Force.
Air Force. Okay. So thank you for your service. 'Cause I'm sure he's gonna listen because
Yeah, he
they're
will.
good
I'm pretty
siblings.
sure he's going to listen.
So thank you for your service. And yeah, Kim is also, when I think of Kim, I think of like a fashion designer.
Oh
Like,
my gosh, that is so crazy. I wanted to be a fashion designer when I was in fourth grade. That is so funny.
no, I literally like, she's just always dressed in the best. Like, even now, like her Jordans, like, I don't know, she's just so cute. I love
you.
Kim. She just makes me smile. She's the sweetest person as well. Like,
Thank you.
she's just so loving. And yeah, that's my Kim. And so just so y'all know a little bit about her.
Yes.
And we actually got to spend some time together this weekend, which was really nice.
Yes, it was a really good weekend. We got to go to a women's conference.
Yes.
And I know we both left with like so many good things. And like I said, like God doesn't do anything by accident. You were there. I know you heard a good like word from that. So
I did.
Yeah.
So it was Heartstrong in Dallas.
Yes.
And it was a women's conference. And we went, and Kimberly had gone before, but it was my first time, and she invited me, whatever. And we went, and it was just so moving. It was so good. Friday night, Nicole, I forgot her last name.
I don't remember her last name.
She had such a good testimony. She's pretty well known
Amazing.
around the Christian community. She's the song of "My Redeemer lives, I know." So Redeemer lives, that's her song. She's amazing. She's blessed. She's so talented.
Yes.
And being there with so many women, listening to her testimony was so beautiful and so empowering.
Yes, so
Like,
inspiring just to see like
yeah.
what they've gone through and then the women that they show up as and how they speak
Yes.
about God and the things that they're able to like give to others, and it's just so
Yeah, it was so
inspiring.
beautiful. And then it was actually a 2-day conference.
Yes.
And we weren't able to go Saturday, but we listened online. And y'all, I'll probably do an episode on it because God's just too good to not do an episode on it. But He literally spoke to my heart and to my situation. And I'm so grateful that you invited me because it's crazy. Like, if you wouldn't have invited me, we wouldn't have gone. And if we wouldn't have gone, like, I wouldn't have received that message and I wouldn't have got to spend time with you. And I just
Yes.
feel like it was so needed. And I'm just
Yes.
grateful.
Yes, I'm so glad that you got to go and experience that.
Yeah.
It's just like God does not do anything on accident. Like you had to be there, you had to receive that word, and it's crazy how it just spoke specifically to your situation. And that is crazy because actually, like, this is my second time attending, and when my first time when I attended, it was I felt like it was very specific to me as well. And the crazy part is I actually wouldn't have been there. I and this is gonna get like really deep and personal really
Yeah,
quick.
let's dive in, girl.
So this time around coming back was 2 years prior to this event, exactly 2 years, which is really crazy. I hit a wall. That's the best way that I can describe it. I just hit a wall where I was ready to give up. I was going through a lot of hard things, and I was just, that specific week was really hard. It was my boyfriend's birthday. I was working overnight shifts. I was dealing with depression, a really, really heavy depression. And so, a little backstory, and it's just, it's not something that's easy to talk about, but just, well, I'll probably get into that a little bit later on. But I did lose my boyfriend to depression. And it was something really hard to have to go through.
Yeah, and I'm really sorry because I can't imagine.
Yeah, thank you. So this happened when I was 18. Um, uh, we lost him, and it just hurt so much. I know that a lot of people were affected, a lot of people, and it hurts so much when it happens like this, because you think you know what somebody's feeling. You think you know that they're going to be okay, or that they're going to get through it, or they're strong enough to get through it, to keep going, to keep fighting.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden, like, it's a shock. It happens, and you never thought that it would. Like, in that moment, seriously, like your world just breaks. And it was just something really hard to even like have to process and accept, and like just, it was just like my reality was so foggy, so blurry. Like, I was just trying to figure out, how do I even, like, how is this real? You know, like, how, like, especially being like the closest person to that person.
Yeah, you were in a relationship
Yes.
with that person.
Yes. So it was just like, I was supposed to see him the next day. We were literally supposed to hang out.
Wow.
That next day.
I think it also shows us too, like, how fast life can go.
Yes.
Really.
Yes. Like, you never know. And so that's just a like backstory about what happened and what I was going through basically at that time. So I was 18 when it happened, and then going back to the event, I was I believe I was 20. Yeah, 20 at this time. So the day before my first time going to the event, I remember hearing about it like on the radio like a month prior maybe, and I was like, oh, that sounds like something I want to go to. And I kind of had like this hope that I was going to be able to attend, but that week I had to end up working night shifts. So that is already like, it was 12-hour shifts night. So that's already like, that's really draining for mental health, period.
Yes.
Like, that is
I don't know
just
why it's
exhausting.
even legal. Like,
right?
should be illegal.
Really, it should be. So that was already really exhausting.
Yeah.
And then that week, like I said, it was his birthday. So it was just even heavier.
And how long had it been at that point? So it had been 2 years?
Yes, 2 years. So actually it was the first year. No, yeah, it was 2 years. 2 years. Okay. And so yeah, so that first time around that I went, like I said, it was his birthday, and it was just so heavy, like trying to accept that he wasn't there to celebrate. It was heavy that I was like, still, I don't think even at this point I had like still accepted it. I think I was still processing it. So it was just really hard to, like, he's not there to celebrate it. So it was just really heavy. And then, so I was leaving work Thursday night. It was Friday morning. I was leaving work, and I remember being like really exhausted, and like I was in a really bad place with the depression and grief, like both depression and grief. Yeah. So that was, I feel like, double.
Yes.
And so that day I remember leaving, and I was just like, what's the point of everything? I was like, my heart was so broken. Like, my soul was torn. I couldn't even think right, I feel. And so I was just driving home, and I was like, what is the point of all this?
Yeah.
Like, well, what am I going to do tomorrow? I'm going to come back and do the same thing, and I'm still going to feel like this. Like, I don't want to keep feeling like this. Like, I don't want to feel this anymore. And then I made up my mind on that drive home. I made up my mind. I was like, today is the last day.
Wow.
Like, today is the last day. Like, I don't want to feel this anymore. I just made up my mind. So I got home, and in the morning, my siblings were going to go to school. And I remember telling my sister, I'll take you to school. And in my head, I was like, this is going to be my goodbye. Like, I'm not going to tell her that, but this is going to be it. Like, I at least want to give her that last memory.
Yeah.
And I told her, I was like, do you want to go get breakfast? And she was like, to school, but I was like, it's worth it, like whatever. So we went to go get breakfast, and I dropped her off. And I felt so torn the entire time because I was like, I'm so sorry. Like, I know I'm going to hurt you. But it was like the pain that I was feeling was so much more than what I knew she was going to feel. So then I remember after that, like, I really didn't have like a plan of how I was going to do it. I just know that I just knew that it was going to be my last day. Yeah. I had finally like just hit this wall where there was just no way through it. There was no way over it, and I didn't care what was on the other side.
Wow.
I didn't care.
Yeah.
So I went to the cemetery, and I was just there for a while. And I sat there in all the pain that I was feeling, trying to just like, I guess, process it and know that these were like my last moments. And I remember like screaming at God, like yelling at him, telling him, like, please forgive me. I was like, God, forgive me. Like, you know what I'm feeling right now. Like, you know my pain. And I was like, I am so sorry that I'm going to do this. I'm sorry, but I give up. I'm done. And and then all of a sudden, like, the radio, like, I don't remember if I turned it on or if it just came on. I don't honestly remember, but I just remember hearing this sermon by, what's his name? I forgot his name.
Dr. Or Pastor Robert Jeffries.
Robert Jeffries, yes, which is exactly the one that was.
That's the only reason why I know he was there at our conference this weekend.
Yes, so I remember it was him preaching, and I remember that it was really odd that he was giving a sermon in the middle of the day too, because I always remember it was music all day and then sermons at night, and so it was really odd. And then all of a sudden, like, it came on, and and he was just speaking in such a like caring way, and it was so like, I don't know, it just felt so caring, like if it was directed towards me. And he was just saying, make wise choices. I remember that standing out to me the most, where he was just like, make wise choices. And he was talking about how it could be your last day or it couldn't be. And the example that he used was like, you're not meant to go yet, but if you go put yourself in the middle of a busy highway, then chances are that something's going to happen to you. Yeah. It's like really high, right?
Yeah.
So in that moment, it just felt like, it gave me peace. First of all, like, it just gave me peace. And then there was like a moment where it just felt like a hug from God. And I don't know how to like explain it, but it just felt like a hug from God, where he was telling me, he was like, I see you. I hear you. I feel your pain.
Yeah.
And he told me, he basically gave me a choice. He said, come with me. If you're in that much pain, come. Like, it's okay. I know what you're feeling. I know that it's hard, and if you want to come with me, come. But he also told me, but if you do, just know what you're leaving behind. Know the pain that you're going to leave your family with. Know, like, that whatever you're feeling right now, everyone around you is also going to feel. And it's just going to be like a continuous cycle. And And I kind of just sat in that, and it was like, wow, like, I don't know, like I told you, like it just felt like this hug from him, because he heard me.
Yeah.
He heard me. He felt my pain and he validated it. And I feel like that's also something that I needed. It was that validation that, yes, you do feel that pain and it's real, and I know that you're not okay. And at that time I didn't understand anything. Like I didn't understand like why everything had happened and why things had happened the way they did, and why I had to like endure it, because I didn't want to. I did not want to. But in that moment, he validated it, and he said like, yeah, if you want to come, come, but remember that, like, remember that you're gonna like leave your family and people that love you, and that same thing.
Yeah.
So somehow I just kind of snapped out of it. And then I was like, okay, God, like, I'm gonna stay. Like, it hurts. I don't want to, but I'm going to. And I remember going home later that evening, and I hadn't seen my mom for 3 days, she said it was. She came in, and because I was working nights and she was working during the day, so I never really got to see her.
You guys were like cross each other.
Yes. So we really didn't get to see each other. And I remember her coming into my room and looking at me, and then she's like, oh my gosh, I haven't seen you in 3 days. Wow. And then she gives me the biggest hug. And that,
I get chills.
yeah, she gives me the biggest hug. And then in that moment, it just felt like the hug that I had received from God earlier. And it was that, I felt like that was God's confirmation to me. Like, you made the right choice. Because keep in mind, like, she hadn't seen me in 3 days. And the next time she would have seen me, if I would have made the other choice to leave, would have been dead.
Yeah.
And that hurt me thinking about that. Like, oh my gosh, like, I didn't think about that. And it was just like God's confirmation, like, you made the right choice. You made the right choice. And that's just something that really stuck with me. And I feel like it was just a turning point as well for me with my journey and with that. Because after that, I feel like things just started turning around. I started getting like closer to God. I started trying to heal.
Yeah.
And I started just figuring out like why God allowed this to happen, you know? Like, what was the purpose of this? Why did I have to endure this? Like, I'm here now, so what am I going to do with this, you know? And so so that's a big thing that I really want to, I guess, talk about is grief and depression. And I know those are really, really hard topics.
Yeah.
Because, you know, people don't want to talk about that type of stuff.
No.
People don't want to show that ugly side that we're in sometimes.
Yeah.
And I really had to experience that in a really, really hard way. Like I said, like, I lost my boyfriend to that. And it blindsided me. It really did. Like I said, we were supposed to go eat the next day. We had plans, and it was a shock. And there were signs about it. There were. I just feel like, I don't know if it wasn't that I didn't see them, because now looking back at it, I they're clear.
Yeah.
And I blamed myself for so long.
Yeah.
Like, I thought it was my fault. I hated myself.
It's like your instant reaction.
Yes.
Yeah.
Because I didn't do anything. Because I didn't save him. Or because I wasn't enough. Because I didn't, like, why didn't I? How did that happen? Yeah. Like, why couldn't I save him? Why didn't I save him? Like, so many things that comes with.
Yeah.
And it's so heavy, so much guilt and shame and hurt. And so grief is really confusing. because when I first went through this, I didn't understand it. I just didn't. I didn't know what was happening to me. I didn't know, like, why am I feeling like this? Or, like, it's just so many emotions that you can't really put into words. And it's so much confusion and hurt.
Yeah.
And I was 18 at the time when it first happened. So, like, this was just, I'm sorry, I got, like, I don't
It's
know.
okay.
I don't know. Um, like, at that age, I feel like you're barely starting life.
Yeah,
And
you're barely tapping into adulthood and
exactly,
everything.
yes. So you're barely starting life, and I had the person that I thought that was all going to be with. You know, we had plans. We had,
How long, if you don't mind answering, how long had you guys been dating already when he left?
so it was about 4 years. So we were dating since we were 14, and there were breaks and stuff, and we went through stuff too. Like, it was,
Yeah.
you know, we went through stuff. But
Still a long time.
yeah, it was a long time that he was in my life for.
Yeah.
So it was just like a drastic
And then for them to be
change.
gone out of nowhere, it's not like a cancer where you can prepare certain months to grieve. It's not anything like that. It's something that's suddenly stripped away from you,
Yes.
you know?
Yeah, so and grief is different for everybody. I feel like it's really specific to the relationship that you had with the person, and just I feel like how often they were there also. But it's just really specific. Like, no two people are going to feel the same grief even towards the same person.
Yeah.
And it's just really heavy to lose someone that was there every single day, someone that you would constantly talk to, someone that you had plans with for the future. So I feel like with grief, there's other losses as well. So you have to grieve your person, and then there's what is called secondary losses. So during this time, I lost friends. I lost the future that I thought I was going to have. I lost myself. I even got to the point where I was like losing my family, but because it was like the self destruction that I was doing because of the pain that I was in. And I know that I hurt other people because of the hurt and the pain that I was in. I didn't know how to handle it. I didn't know how to handle it. And I was also looking for other people to blame at some point too, because it was just, I couldn't understand it.
Yeah.
And I did blame myself. I blamed my parents. I blamed just wherever I could find some type of fault.
I think loss is just so hard for us to wrap our minds around that it is our first reaction to blame. And whether that's God, whether that's an illness, whether that's that person, whether that's ourselves, someone else. I can't imagine because I've never lost someone that close to me. I lost my grandfather. It's like 3 or 4 years now. But due to cancer, but he lived in Chicago most of my childhood, so I wasn't close to him. So when he came to move out here was because he had cancer and he came to live with me in my dad's house, and he was with me when I got my permit and stuff. When I barely started driving, I actually went down a one way with him in the car, and we like freaked out. It was so bad. And like I had a lot of special moments with him, but it was for a very short amount of period of time.
Yeah.
Once we already found out that he had cancer, he was already in stage 4. So he was in stage 4 cancer, and he was a very positive person. And he kind of like didn't even fear if he were to die. He didn't fear it. And I was really glad he was able to like come to church with us and stuff because it's something he didn't do in Chicago. So when he came out here, he actually went to church and stuff with us. But we were able to prepare our hearts, prepare room for him to pass away, and like plans, and kind of like have good goodbyes. We did pray that he would be healed from cancer, and he was cancer free at one point. But it came back.
Yeah.
Yeah, it came back, and it came back to kill him. He lived very shortly after when it came back after he was cancer free.
Mm-hmm.
And it was really hard to see him like that. Like he wasn't even breathing his own air. Like we had hospice in our home, and he was on oxygen tanks, and it was so sad to see like he was so loving and so kind. And like, those are things that you can't take away. Those are emotions to those people that you can't unlive, all those moments. They play in your head and they play in your heart. And it was just really sad to like let him go.
Yeah.
But like, I was at least able to like prepare my heart, prepare my mind, and like the family as well, and so I can't imagine, even with that death and it being heavy and sad. And I was hopeful, like, that God knew his situation and that he would resurrect him and that he would be with him in heaven. But it still hurts,
It does.
like,
Yeah.
it still hurts.
Yeah. I'm
Yeah.
so sorry for your loss. I know
It's
that
okay.
like loss is so hard.
Yeah.
And it hurts. Like no matter how much you even try to prepare for something like that, like there's going to be this immense hurt and pain. And even it's just something that your brain doesn't know how to react to.
Yeah.
There is like some type of chemical change that happens in your brain whenever you're going through like grief. It's like all out of whack. And I remember reading into it. I was just learning more about grief and stuff because I was trying to understand like what was happening and how like how to get through it, I was really how to figure out like I have to keep going somehow. But in that, I just really, it was God. It was God that got me through. And so grief is like one thing. And then adding depression, like that's a whole nother thing as well.
Yeah.
And together, that's like, double. So I was just having to like deal with both at the same time. I feel like it was like grief, and then I just dropped down into depression because I had realized, like, I feel like the first 3 months, 3, 4, 5 months, I don't know. I don't even know how time was passing by at that point, honestly. It was like grief and the initial shock. And grief just shows up as like anger and sadness and like outbursts and like so many things that at that time I didn't understand. I was like, why am I acting out like this, or like, whatever. And I was just like, I'm just hurt. It's just pain. But yeah, it is the grief. And then all of a sudden when I like, I guess had finally like, oh my gosh, like he's gone. And this took me a while to actually like wrap my head around. It went into like depression. Like it just went down like bad. And I turned to so many things like that I shouldn't have, which made it even worse. Like it made the depression worse. It made my anxiety worse. I even had panic attacks a lot of the time. Like, and I didn't understand why. I seriously didn't understand any of these things or why they were happening. I just knew that something was like really wrong, and I knew that I had just went through that. So it was just very like, I don't know, it was just kind of like everything just flipped upside down. And everything that I knew, person that I was, like everything completely was like different.
Yeah.
And for a long time I just waited for like things to go back. I waited for like, it felt like some switch to flip and for things to go back to how they were, and they never did. And I remember like during this time I got really close to his sisters, and we talked about God and stuff, and we tried to go to church, and I would go to church with them, which this was a Catholic church. So I really honestly never felt like a connection there. But I was searching for God. I was searching for God, and just like, I don't know, but I don't think I really ever found him during that time, just because my brain was still really foggy, or I was just still really confused. And then I remember I started this job at Liqueur. And I remember,
oh my God, that's actually where I first met you back at, right?
Was it?
Liqueur?
It might have been.
I think so.
Was it?
Because remember I worked there and like
No,
I saw
I think
you
it
and
was
stuff?
Bible study first.
Okay.
It was Bible study.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah. But I remember seeing you in the window too,
Okay.
so I was like, oh, she's gonna take her. But so I remember I started this job. I think it was like maybe like a year and a half after like I had been going through all this, and I met actually one of our Bible study friends' mom there, which is so crazy how that happened too. And she kind of just like spoke to me about God, and she knew what I was going through. I told her, and at this time it was really hard to even tell anybody too, but I felt like I could trust her. Like she just had this way about her, and she had like this peace and just a loving manner to her, and I just felt like I could trust her. So I told her, and from that moment to my last day there, or her last day there, because she left before me, I experienced the love of God from her. And seriously, like it was such a blessing, and I know that it had to be God.
Yeah.
That allowed us to cross paths at this time, because I really I think I needed that at that time, and she just brought like she showed me the hope that God was. She showed me the love that he has, and that's where I started to get more curious and started to like, oh, like she just had this peace about her that I was like, I want that, you know? And I was just like, okay, like I started getting more curious and getting closer to God. And then, like I said, like that had happened. And it was also around that time. And, um, and then that night, after like that incident had happened with me, that night my boss texted me and he was like, you don't have to go to work. And then so I was like, oh, that's crazy. Like, I can go to the event.
So wait, he told you that the day before you had the whole incident of like maybe you like leaving Earth.
That
Is that what you're
actually
saying?
happened after, yes.
Okay.
My boss texted me, and I forgot to include this. My boss texted me a little bit after, like, that whole moment had happened.
Yeah.
Like, whenever after that, like after when I was in the car and I had decided like, okay, God, I'm gonna stay. A little bit after that, my boss texted me and he's like, you don't have to go to work tonight.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So like
That's
immediately it just
crazy.
felt like immediately things started turning around. Yeah, like that is crazy. So I remembered and I didn't think about it that moment, but like later on I remembered, oh, the event, I can go now. So I texted like his sister and we ended up going the next day.
To the same Heartstrong event we went to, right?
Yes.
Okay.
Exactly 2 years ago. So it's like
That's
it just
crazy.
meant yeah, it meant so much to me to like be able to go back and like in just a different manner and in a different light, like really with the joy that God, like he literally just saved my life, and he was, I don't know, it's just so amazing and so crazy to me that I was able to go back, because then I really wasn't supposed to. Like in my head, in my mind, all this like it's crazy that I'm even here too, like here being able to share this with you.
Yeah.
So it was just
So
yeah.
you went with his sister.
Yes.
Okay.
And they actually had spoken about the last speaker. Her name was Nika, I believe. She was actually talking um about God and about like all this stuff, and just the way that she was speaking about God, it was just so beautiful. It was so amazing to hear, and just the way that she spoke about God, it was like, oh, she had never been hurt before. Like God loves her so much. Like she's experienced all the good things. And at the very end of her like speaking, she said, I lost my sister this past year. She took her life.
Wow.
And in that moment, like my heart sunk. I was like, what? Like there's no way. Like she does not look like she's gone through that. And
I get chills again.
yeah, I know. And I was like, we were both actually like very like amazed by that. And we're like, wow. And in that moment my mind was just like, this is God. Like this has to be God. Like I wasn't supposed to be here. I wasn't supposed to be there that day.
Yeah.
I was not. And the fact that everything like just tied in together to that, and it just gave me so much hope to see like a woman speaking about God like that in
Yeah.
such like a loving way, and to see like what he's done in her life even after she went through that, because I understood that pain. I understood like how that felt, and then to like see her be there, it was just like so crazy to me, and I was like, wow, like God, this is you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow. It's crazy. Like, you barely, like, you told me a little bit about, you know, on our way back and like going there, how kind of it was so special to you, why it was special to you. And I just think it's beautiful how like even through hurt and through grief and loss, we kind of maybe lose ourselves, and the Lord is the one that like makes those twisted and confusing, cloudy images to these picture perfect, no glare, no nothing pictures out of those situations, out of those dirty
Yeah.
lenses that we had.
Yeah.
We had those dirty lenses, and he's like, you still got a clear picture perfect picture here. And it's because his hand was in everything. But it was also a decision you made, because you could have made the other decision to lose your life, but because you chose the decision to like trust the Lord, and like even though this is hard, that you're going to continue fighting, like that's why you're here, because
Yeah.
you allowed God to take over. But if you would have continued to do it in your way, like who knows? But you gave that
Exactly. Yeah.
situation, it was a decision that you had to make,
Yeah.
you know?
Yes. And in that moment, it was so, so hard. And I know I had experienced like God a little bit before that, and I was trying to really find him. And like everything that led up to that moment, it was just like God really showed me who he was. He made it so like clear, like I'm here for you, I hear you, and I love you. And there's like a video that I heard one time, and it said loving God hurts sometimes. And I feel like yes, because in that moment, like I didn't want to continue. I did not want to keep going. I didn't want to keep feeling that pain. But I feel like I felt his love, and I wanted to reciprocate that love somehow. And so in that, like I was able to say, "Okay, I trust you." And even though it was something that I didn't want to do and that hurt me to keep going, it was like it was just faith and like trust that, okay, God, like for some reason you're telling me to stay. For some reason you're giving me that option.
Wow.
And it did hurt to keep going. It did hurt to keep feeling everything. And there was so much more that came after that. And like, I don't want to say that thought went away completely, because I was still like dealing with like suicidal thoughts and depression and the grief still even after that. But because he got me through that moment, I knew that he was going to get me through all the other ones to come.
That's so good.
Yes. And I was just like, it was just like this trust that he was building with me.
Yeah.
And so it does, like, sometimes it does hurt to love God. Loving God hurts sometimes. And that's maybe something that we're not used to saying or used to hearing, because we are so used to like, oh, like loving God is like good and like all this positive stuff, but it does hurt sometimes because it may not be what we want. It may not be like what we are like wanting to feel.
Yeah, I have two thoughts that just came to my mind. One is like maybe we feel that way because like internally our soul knows that like this isn't even our life anyways. Our life belongs to him. And so like it's like we have to die to self, which is in scripture anyways.
Yes.
Carry our cross,
And that's
which is
actually,
heavy
yes. And
and
I was going to bring up
tiring.
that scripture that it was like, it's like you have to die to yourself, carry your cross, and follow me.
Yes.
And when I learned that scripture, when I like read it, it was like, wow, like that is so true. We do. Like, we have to really like die to ourselves and die to our
Yes.
desires and the things that we want sometimes, and carry that cross.
Yeah.
And that cross can be so heavy. It can like feel like it's crushing you sometimes.
Yeah.
But we have to carry it and know and trust that God is there with us. God, Jesus himself did it. he did
Yes.
it.
Yeah.
So he was perfect.
He didn't have to come down here and save us. He could have rebelled that moment when he was in the garden and he was praying and stuff. Like, Jesus was fully man and he was fully God, but he came on that cross to die for us. Like, he killed himself for us because he loves us and because he wanted to make a way to heaven. God sent him here
Mm-hmm.
and he chose to obey and listen to God because he was fully God. But he was fully man, and even the devil tried to tempt him
Mm-hmm.
and was like, Lord, well, if you're really God, then turn this bread into stone or turn the stone into bread because you're so hungry because he had been fasting. And it's like the devil might tempt us like that, like, oh, well, you've been stuck in this dark place. Like, it's not going to hurt anyone. Just do it.
Yeah.
Just do it.
Yeah, and then those moments, like we don't even know that it's the enemy or that it's that. We think it's ourselves. And I feel like that makes it even worse because you don't understand why you're having these thoughts. Like if you don't know that that's like an attack from the enemy and you're not in that space, because usually when you are in that space, you're not really like thinking that, oh, it's like the devil. You're thinking that it's yourself.
Yeah.
You really, like, for me personally, I was like, what's wrong with me? Like, why am I having these thoughts? Like, and it made me hate myself even more. Like, it made me like want to do it even more because of that, because I was like, what's wrong with me and why is this happening? Like, I seriously didn't understand. But now, like, now that I do, I know that that's what it actually is. Like, those are not my thoughts.
Yeah.
That is not what God wants for me.
Yeah.
That is like an attack. And it's just, it's hard to think of in the moment. It's hard to like accept that it's not you.
Yeah. But I think also it's like crazy to think that like if you hadn't experienced that loss and you hadn't came with all of that grief and depression that had accumulated and built up inside of you, it came to that one moment where you were actually deciding that it was your last day. And then that moment with Jesus would have never happened. Like, would you be the Christian and the faith believer that you are today?
Definitely
Like,
not.
that's
Yeah.
so
It is
crazy.
so crazy. And that makes me think of like how I believe it's like Romans that God works all things together for good. And I remember hearing that like sometime during that time and I was like, there's no way that this could bring any good. Like this happened and it broke everyone around him and it broke his family and it broke like his friends and like just everyone that knew him. Like it hurt so much. Like, how could this possibly be for good? How could this possibly work out in any way that has positive to it?
Yeah.
And truthfully, like it brought me, his family, and like people that really knew him, like closer to God. We needed God at that time. We could not have gone through without him. We needed that hope and that love
Yeah.
and that forgiveness really too. There's also like forgiveness is a big part of it as well. It wasn't really something that I thought of forgiving myself until like I was started I guess my healing journey, and I came to it and I was like, I have to forgive myself. And it was the hardest thing to do because I blamed myself for so long. I hated myself and I just didn't ever think I was good enough because how did that happen? Like the closest person. How did that happen?
Yeah.
And so I just really blamed myself for so long. And then I came to a place where I was like having to forgive myself for that and to accept that it wasn't my fault and to accept that God was there in that moment as well. It did happen, but God was there and he allowed it to happen for some reason. We
Yes.
don't know like what could have happened later down the road, and maybe I could have saved him in that moment, but I don't know if he would have tried it again or if later on it would have happened.
Yeah.
So it was just a whole entire process that I had to go through, and I had to learn and accept and forgive myself and even forgive him, because I
Yeah.
remember like feeling mad at him for so long too. Like, how could you do that? And like, you hurt all of us and stuff, but I did have to forgive him. And just Jesus forgives. There there was somebody that was telling me like, oh, he's like in a bad place now, and negative things. And I felt like in that moment when this person was telling me that, there was like a voice in my head, or at this point it was like really early on, so I didn't really know like God that well, but at that moment, like something was telling me, don't listen to her. Like, don't listen to her. She does not decide any of that. And it was like, she doesn't know what she's talking about. And I wanted to yell at her. Like, I wanted to be like, shut up. But something literally like reframed me. And I was crying so much when she was telling me this. And she kept on talking. So I was like, how do you not, like, you're hurting me right now, And she kept on saying like all these negative things about like the decision that he had made and stuff. And I was like, but for some reason, something kept me quiet. And now looking back at it, I know that it was God like giving me peace in that moment and holding me at that time, because I really didn't know, like, it was just like, don't let that like hurt you. Don't let that's not right.
Yeah.
Like, that's not, because
Yeah, because, well, we're not the judge. He's the ultimate judge, and
Yes.
he's the one that determines our eternity.
Yes.
Not any single one of us.
Yeah.
We're unrighteous to
Exactly.
do so. He
Exactly.
tells us that in his word. So, yeah.
Yeah, so
Especially I feel like when it's fresh, like, no one is, like, even saying I'm sorry for your loss, that doesn't take away the pain. That doesn't, so then even further, like, trying to tell someone the destiny of someone else, like, that's very painful.
Yeah.
Like, that's adding more hurt, not, not grieving with you, not sympathizing for your loss, but simply, like, disregarding, your feelings, and ultimately, like, the respect of the Lord, that he's the one that's seated on the throne that determines, and he's the judge,
Yeah. Yeah, and then so that was just crazy, Now looking back at it, I knew it was God like giving me that peace.
Yeah.
And I learned like later on that she wasn't a believer. So well, she knew about God, but she didn't like, she wasn't a Christian, or so then that kind of confirmed like, she doesn't know. Like, she doesn't have a say to that. And so yeah, it was just so much that happened, and in so many ways I was able to see God work in my life, and to turn like this ugliness of what my life was into like who I am today. Like, I seriously wouldn't be who I am today. I wouldn't have had like my character be like this. And it just, like, looking back at it, in my deepest, darkest, ugliest time of my life, I didn't have to do a single thing for God to meet me there. Like, he met me there. I was so lost. I was hopeless. I was suicidal. I was depressed. Literally the worst like time of my life that I was like experiencing. God met me there. I didn't have to do like a single thing for him to accept me or for him to love me. I didn't have to be okay for God.
Oh, that's such a good point, girl.
Yes,
Because so many people are like, well, I have to fix my mess. Like, I can't, who am I to go before God like this? Like, I can't go dressed this way. I can't go with this sin. I can't go, but like, the Lord is there with you, even without you trying to like fix yourself to come to him. He's there waiting just for you to open your mouth and say, I'm giving this to you. Like, I give up and I'm giving it to you.
Exactly. Yes. Yeah, so and then I do remember that moment of like surrender, where I was just like, God, like, I can't do this anymore. Like, I can't, like, there's nothing left for me to even try to fix, Like, I give this to you, and I trust you that you're gonna like do the work that I can't.
Yeah.
So it was just shows his love, like, so, it's so great.
Yeah.
And it's so like undefined, because I didn't have anything to offer him at all, nothing.
Yeah.
And he still,
I think that shows, besides his faithfulness and his love, it shows that he completes his promises. Because He tells us this in his word. In Psalm 34, verses 17 through 20, he says, "When the righteous cry for help, the Lord hears and delivers them out of their troubles. The Lord is near to the brokenhearted and saves the crushed spirit. Many are the afflictions of the righteous, but the Lord delivers him out of them all. He keeps all his bones, not one of them is broken." Like, he kept his promise in the situation to you. And I know, like, whoever is listening and, like, you're going through the same thing, maybe you have gone through the same thing, you didn't understand, like, what carried you through or, like, how you surpassed that. Like, the Lord heard you. He delivered you from your troubles. He was near to your broken heart. He saved your crushed spirit. He was with all of your afflictions and he delivered you out of it. And he remembers all of those things and he cares for us. And I think that's hard for us as humans to feel and to, I don't know. It's like, for example, me and you. If I get hurt, you're here for me physically and I can know that you're caring for me and that you're crying with me because I can see you here doing it.
Mm-hmm.
But God is not here like tangibly to touch. He is here spiritually, he is here physically, but like, well, he's not here physically. Like, we can't grasp him, but he's here spiritually. Like, he's dwelling amongst us right now, but we don't feel him. And like in those moments, you might not, feel him lifting up all that weight. You might not feel that he cares, but like he shows you that he does later on, like in that hug that you
Yes.
received, in that text from your boss that you received, in the sermon that was playing in your car. Like, those are all the ways the Lord is showing up and showing you that he cares and he's listening and he's answering,
He is.
you know?
And sometimes in those moments maybe we don't feel him in a good way, but you have like just trust and just know that he is there. He's there with you, beside you. He's feeling that pain with you. And maybe that's why we don't feel him, because we're expecting like a good feeling to come or for that feeling to be gone or whatever, but he's there. He's feeling that pain with us. He is there through us. He is there with us through that. And that's something that I can look back at now and know that in those moments that I was like broken, that I was crying, that I felt so alone, that I was alone, I actually wasn't, because God was there. Like, Jesus was there with me and he was feeling that pain with me. He was there, just not in the way that I thought he would have been, like taking it away. No, he was sitting there with me, crying with
Yes.
me, and like experiencing it too.
Yes. And I don't know. I really just feel like it just shows. And like, how can we not give glory and like, how can we not give honor to God when he delivers us from situations like that? Yes, sometimes it takes a dire and horrible situation like that to happen to increase our faith and to increase our spiritual life. Now, it doesn't mean that the Lord planned for that to happen, just for no reason. I think a lot of people have that concept, maybe like, oh, I blame God because it's his fault because he made it happen and there's no reason behind it. But there is a purpose for your pain. And that's something that even we learned this weekend, where she was saying there's purpose for your pain. God doesn't let any single child go through something without something good happening out of it, coming out of it.
Yes.
Because what kind of loving God would that be? That he just let you sit in pain and all your life was pain and no good came out of it. Like, there's purpose for your pain because he's a God that loves, he's a God that cares, and he wants to deliver you from those situations.
Exactly, yeah. And I think there's a verse for that too. I think it's Jeremiah. I don't know exactly like the numbers, but he says like, I have plans for you. I have plans for your future and plans for you to prosper and not to hurt you. So
Yes.
that that's also like a big hope, and that's one of his promises to us, that yes, like you might be going through that and it's not easy. It's definitely not easy, but if you trust in God and just leave it in his hands, because we don't have the strength to go through that. We don't have the strength to pull ourselves out of it. It's God who does that. I remember that I had nothing to hold on to, like nothing at all. And it was only God that I could like hold on to. And sometimes it wasn't me holding on, it was him to me. And so it was just I don't know, like I don't even have words for it to like put into words like how God works or what he does, and that he's there, he truly is there. And if you're going through depression or going through grief or whatever it is that you might be experiencing right now, just a hard time in life, just know that God is there.
Yes.
He loves you, he sees you, and that there's hope for you, and he has a purpose for your life. Even if you can't see it right now, he has a purpose. And sometimes it takes him breaking us. It takes him like turning us into that dust again to mold us again, and to for us to know that he does.
Yes.
He's building that trust, and it's a process. It's a process, and it takes time, but it's in that where God's like showing us that I got you through this. I'm gonna get you through this and this and this.
Yes. And like literally, if you don't believe it, like look at the testimony of Kim. Like God did have plans for her. God still has great plans for her. Like, I mean, you got a realtor license. Like, you're going to be able to
That is
sell
so crazy.
homes to people. Like,
Yes.
you are in our community group, in our Bible study group, and I know everyone loves you. You like everyone looks at you like the sweet, loving Kimberly. Like, you're loving to everyone, and like you're just so accepting, and you're not snotty. You're not, I don't know, you don't show envy towards people. And it's, I mean, especially girls who are beautiful, and you are a beautiful woman.
Oh, thank you.
A lot of them can be conceited. They can be, I don't know, just rude, whatever. And you're just such a humble and loving spirit. And I know that the Lord
Thank you.
honors that. And I
And
truly believe that.
yeah, and I can't say that I was always like that. Like maybe before like this happened in my life, I wasn't that person. I wasn't this person. And it was truly like God, he used that to make me who I am today. And that's truly like a big part of why I am like that, because I've gone through that pain, because I've gone through that hurt, and I feel like I can sympathize more with others, and like I seriously care so much for like the people around me, because I know what that pain feels like. I know what it's like to be broken and to be in that hole that's just hurt so much. So if I can like help someone else through it, or if I can just be like a light to someone else, even if it's like in whatever way,
Yeah.
that's I just it was God who
Yes.
did
And
that.
I love you so much. And I'm so glad that like you're here. Like that you're here, you're alive, and you're in our community group, and you're in our community. Like you're doing stuff for the community. And I think that the Lord is just gonna work through you and through anyone else who is going through this process of depression, or maybe struggling with suicidal thoughts, or with grief. Like the Lord does have plans for you, and they're gonna fulfill. And you just have to have faith, and you have to trust him. The more that you press into him, the more he's going to produce. It's funny because that's also something she shared this weekend. Was she said, the more I was pressed, the more oil that was spilled. And just know that whatever process you're going through, whatever season you're going through, and it has a purpose. And even if you don't understand it now, one day maybe you'll look back and you'll understand, because the Lord says that. And I believe in his word because it's alive today, and it's spreading amongst everyone. And I believe that God is going to spring up this generation.
Yes,
And we were just even
definitely.
talking like some this
Yes.
weekend of just like visions and plans the Lord is just instilling.
Yes. I'm
And
so excited to see like everybody, like they have their own projects, and like just God is working right now. I'm so excited to see like where that takes everybody and the church as a whole, like just everyone getting together and just honoring and glorifying God.
yes, like this right now is worship, because this is bringing glory to him, because we're giving him what is rightly his.
Yes.
You know, the testimony that he gives me, the testimony he gives you, like those belong to him, because these aren't our lives that we're living. God gave us this life. He gives the opportunity to live, and not everyone gets the opportunity. There's people that didn't wake up today.
Yeah.
There's people that died in a car accident on their way to some place today. There's babies that were dead before they were even born.
Yeah.
Like Like we should be giving every single breath that we have, we should be giving it back to the Lord in whatever way that looks like, whether that's sharing your testimony, whether that's giving someone else love, whether that's being peace with other people in the midst of chaoticness that they're in, or light to someone that's just depressed in this dark situation. Like, those are all ways of worship that we give glory back to God, And I know he's so happy right now, and he's smiling, and he's like,
this was so hard. Like, seriously, it was so hard. Like, I
can't imagine.
I was praying about this for like so long because I was like, God, like, do I share this? Like, is this something that I need to put out there? And I don't know. He like confirmed it to me in small ways, but it was really hard. It really was. But yes, like my goal is really to just show like what God did in my life, because I know like it's so crazy to me how you were just saying like I'm in the community and I'm a realtor now, and like it's crazy to me because I did not ever like envision this for my life. And it's just how God works. Like he turned me, like someone that was just struggling so much, and I don't know, like just the way that I know that I was, it's just like, wow, like I can't believe it looking at it now.
I think that the enemy really tries to hold us captive in the fact that you were talking a lot about this earlier, that we blame ourselves, that we hate ourselves, especially now with social media and culture. And, there's this image of who's pretty, who's not pretty, who's cool, who's not cool, who's, I don't know, who's whatever you want to put in the blanks. Like, and the enemy really uses that to put us in a way of thinking we are not qualified, we are not enough, especially us as women. We're not beautiful enough. We're not ever going to be perfect enough for whatever career we want to pursue. We will never be good enough. And those lies can hold people captive for so long. Those lies make us hate ourselves, and in return don't allow us to love God, because he's the creator of all things. And if we love him, we're going to love ourselves. Not in maybe you don't like the way you look, right? Which I think the more that you fall in love with God, you will love the way you look, because you know that he's created those things for you. But even with the fact that like us hating ourselves is hatred towards God's creation. And we may not see it like that in that moment, but it's true. And the enemy keeps us captive, because then when we think that we can't do something, we can't pursue something, we hinder the Lord's plans for us. I'm not going to say that we stop them, because we're no one to stop the Lord's plans. He's going to make them fulfill anyways, but we hinder them in the fact that we don't pursue it, because we're like, we're not enough, we're not qualified. And the moment we break those chains, we break those thoughts, and we release them from our mind, God has space in our mind, and he can bring clarity to our confusion and our hatred. And we're able to see, what is it, God, that you want me to do? What are the plans for my life that you have? And it might not be super clearly that you see them, because we don't know the future, but step by step, he starts taking you. And the word says he is a lamp to our path, because he's the one that like, okay, I can only see until here, but he's the light from here till there. I get there. Okay.
Then he's my see more lamp.
Yes. And he keeps us going. And I just love that your story highlights that. And it really just shows the love of God, and that he is near to the broken, and that he has plans that are good for us, no matter what state of mind we are in, no matter what things we turn to through hard times. Like, he's going to bring our soul to remember that he's the only thing that can fulfill our hurt and our loss and our pain.
The only thing.
Because I feel like no matter like what you turn to, your heart still knew like, this isn't enough for me. Like, this still didn't help me. It made it worse. It left me the same. And then God's like, I can be here for you, and like turn it around completely to where you don't need anything else but me. You really don't. And like, even like your career, like it's a really hard career to step up to, like realtor. Like, you don't know what house you're gonna sell. You don't know what family you're gonna help or when. And like, I feel like in that career, it takes so much trust because in the Lord, because you're like, I have to trust that the Lord's going to supply my financial needs in this job. He's going to
Yes,
bring me the family
definitely.
that needs me to help them to be able to like bring my financial situation in.
Yes,
And
definitely that. And I also try to just pray about my clients too. I really do like pray over them and just hope and pray that like I never put my needs before theirs and that God is going to put them in the right home that's for them. So I always try to just always keep that because it's
yeah,
God who gave me like it's crazy like he allowed me to get to that place, you know? So
yeah.
just, yeah.
Yeah. Well, thank you, Kim, for being so brave and like listening to the Lord in this, that you know, chose to come on here and share this topic with me. I remember when I was thinking about you, I was like, well, maybe she can just share on business. I was like, I really want her on because she's such a sweet person and loving person. And I knew that you had lost someone that was very close to you,
Mm-hmm.
but I didn't know the depths of your situation, like
Yeah.
anything. And the fact that you stepped up in boldness and you actually were like, hey girl, like that'd be cool, but I also have this on my heart and mind.
Mm-hmm.
And I can assure you, and I pray in the name of Jesus that you stepping out in faith right now help at least one other person
Yeah.
listening to this in the name of Jesus, and that they're
Amen.
set free from that depression. They're set free from the self hatred and the guilt and the blamingness. And in the name of Jesus, that their mind and their heart is restored, and that they're set free from all those captive lies that the enemy tries to hold on us, and
Mm-hmm.
all the darkness and the evilness that he is, that we're able to acknowledge and see that and turn away from that and say, no, I'm not going to listen to you. No, I'm not going to stay here, because he's right there and he's here for me and he's going to save me.
Yes.
And I don't know, I just thank you so much for being so brave and sharing your story, even though I know it's really hard. And internally, I'm sure it was just so hard to like relive and talk everything out. But I know that the Lord's going to bless you in listening to his voice, because he says that in his word.
Yeah,
He
he does.
does.
Yes.
And
Thank you so much for
yeah.
having me and allowing me to share this. It is a really deep topic and it's scary and it's like not something that too many people talk about, but it is needed. It needs to be shared and you're not alone. Like if you are going through it, you're not alone and nothing is wrong with you. It's just like attacks from the enemy and it's sometimes it is like actual like chemical things in your brain.
Yes,
It is.
yes. As a psychologist's career, yes. Sometimes our
Yes.
chemicals are imbalanced and it
Yes.
causes different emotions. Yeah.
Yeah. So just give it to God, keep faith, and just know that He has something for you. And it's so hard to really just get through those moments when it's so, so dark and you don't see any light. It's just like, where, like, what, But God is there. He is,
Yes.
and He'll bring that light into your life slowly.
There's hope in
There is.
Jesus.
Just know that you are loved. I love you. And God loves you. More than anything,
Yes.
God loves you. And He's
Yes.
there with you. He hears, He listens, and
Yes.
He keeps track of all the tears that you've cried.
He does. And he holds them very close to his heart.
He does.
Yes.
All
Thank you so
right.
much,
Thank
Kim. I
you.
love you. And I'm so glad that you're here today. Like, literally. And I can't wait for our friendship to continue to grow
Yeah.
and for me to watch the beautiful businesswoman that you're going to become.
Thank you.
I'm really excited.
Yeah, I'm
The
excited to
Lord's
see
moving.
what God's going to do and for everything.
Yes.
And I know God's going to do amazing things with this podcast too.
Yes. That's my prayer.
Excited. Yes.
Yes. Well, thank you guys for tuning in and joining us on this beautiful yet very deep episode on just grief and depression and hardness that just comes in our lives in different shapes and forms. And thank you for tuning in. Stay tuned and let us know in the comments if this was a blessing to you. We want to know if this encouraged you, if this, maybe you're listening to this and you were having the same thoughts and this was able to help you and you related. Like, let us know. We love to know that this is reaching you and this is helping you. So stay tuned. Thank you for joining. Be blessed, and I'll see you guys next Thursday.